Welcome to the Faceoff. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Caroline Meyer, founder and principal consultant from Get Travel Solutions. And today I have my guest co-host, Greeley Koch from 490 Consulting, Megan Dressel, a travel manager from Keller North America, and Valerie Fender, regional travel manager from Nurion. And our speakers or panelists are Megan and Valerie. And we're going to talk about the topic of hotel RFP versus alternative solutions today and break down this complex topic. So get us all started on this. I'm going to start with Megan, if you wouldn't mind. Can you give us a little background of like what exactly is the hotel RFP process for people who maybe haven't done this or are new to this?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not rocket science, right? When you're doing an RFP, what you're trying to do is confirm a rate with a hotel. So in a traditional model, you take a look at the data you have. You look at what your agency booked, maybe you look at your credit card spend, you figure out which hotels you're using and that you're likely to use again, and you send them a request and say, hey, we'd like to confirm a rate. What can you offer us? You negotiate that rate, confirm it, load in your booking tool, and you're in business.
Great. Okay. And then based on that, so some people do an annual hotel RFP process, and that's been pretty standard historically, right? Valerie, what do you think about the annual hotel RFP process?
Well, I think that you can't really get around that you're going to negotiate your rates annually. We don't like it, but it's just necessary. I think that the sort of traditional RFP process that involves the technology, the sometimes pulling in consultants to help you with it, all the data analysis, and sending out this great big file full of all the properties that you want to get bids from, and then reviewing and chasing the properties that haven't responded is first very expensive and most important, incredibly time consuming. And I am of the opinion that the return is really just not there. Now, obviously it depends on the size of your program. Where do you travel? What is the average expected cost of a room night where you go? Who's traveling and what their expectations are, what's their rank within the company, and also how is it, is travel very much budget driven, or is it outcomes driven, where a traveler may have some flexibility in terms of what they can spend. So I'm comfortable with the fact that I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not doing the great big fat file. Does not mean that we're not negotiating rates and that we're doing that annually or sometimes, in the middle of a cycle. It's what we've chosen to do. It is still time consuming for sure, but negotiating at the property level. I have just had more luck with building those kind of relationships with and getting, measurable cost savings, but expected. You're not looking to you're not going to get a huge percentage off of what the fair market rate would be.
So Valerie, let me jump in here because, okay, thank you both for kind of describing like the traditional and alternative, I guess is a good way to put it, because everybody I talk to, whether it's on the buyer side or the hotel side, nobody likes the hotel RFP process, right? I've never heard somebody say, I'm looking forward to this. I can't wait to do this. My data is easily accessible. I'm going to get the results back. The rates are going to be loaded with no problem. My travelers are going to be able to access those rates, no issues, right? Nobody ever
really
says
can we take this opportunity to challenge our technology providers that are watching right now that we need someone to build a better mousetrap?
Exactly.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, we can, right? That there's got to be a better way. Okay, so I'll get off my soapbox now about the hotel process. So then let's dive a little bit deeper. So having kind of that overlay of kind of where you both are falling as far as thinking about this, let's dive into what you're really doing today. So Megan, let's start with you again.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that there's that traditional process, what have you done or adopted that kind of works best for you and your situation?
So I've done this. I'm doing this right now with my current company. I've done it with really big companies in the past. Look on my LinkedIn if you want to see where that was. But at the end of the day, when you have a large program, I don't think there's a better way out there unless you can live with chain-wide rates and you're leaving money on the table. If you are, you need to do something to go to those hotels. It's great to have relationships with your properties. And if you've got 5 or 10 or 20 business locations, maybe that's possible. If you're sourcing in hundreds of markets worldwide, it's not going to be practical for you. There aren't enough hours in the day for you to have a conversation with every hotel you want in your program. So you have to send them a solicitation. You have to collect that data back in some sort of automated fashion. And you have to do your accepts and rejects and negotiations through some sort of tool. I respect what Valerie's saying. And if I was only sourcing a handful of hotels, that totally makes sense. But when you get to scale, it's not practical. And if you compensate for that by running a simply chain-wide program, a % off at all hotels in this brand or that brand, you're leaving an opportunity behind. I see what I do as having a fiduciary responsibility to my company. My current role, we're a construction company. Budget is key to us. And I have to be able to assure my people that they're getting the very best rate they can.
Yeah.
And so then, Megan, do you stick to kind of I'm going to do this RFP once, we'll put it in place. Do you have reviews along the way, or you try to stick with that one RFP process?
Yeah, so we do one main RFP. Nothing is static in this industry. Industry aside, nothing is static in my business. So when a location pops up, sure, I'll send a bid in a small city. I'll pick 2 or 3 hotels I'm interested in and ask them to propose rates. If I have a location that suddenly pops up as a hot spot, I may just go to that hotel and negotiate. But we try to do the bulk of our transient sourcing in a one-time process because I don't have time to chase it around.
Yeah, given the size and scope. Okay, so that's helpful to understand, from your perspective, the size, the scope, what works best for you. So Valerie, now let's go over to you. Having heard this and you having been involved with hotel RFPs for a while. So what works best for you? What have you found, with the combination of options out there when it comes to the hotel RFP process? What works best for you?
Well, I think that being mostly in small to mid-size in my career, it's important to keep the analysis of what's happening, where people are staying, is happening throughout the year, not just when it's time to, go out to bid. So I have a pretty good idea of where people are staying in important locations. I don't ask for rates from anybody if there's less than 100 room nights a year. There just isn't any reason to do that. So we're talking about a manageable number of destinations where there's office locations, sites that are often visited. So if within that list, you've got several Hiltons and several Marriott's, I will send the properties that I want to a national account manager. But we're talking via email or by phone. I'm not sending them, not using any RFP technology anymore. And then these rates, if it's not getting supported, we have conversations about it. Or if I start to see that people are not choosing the preferred, and maybe I need to do an about face and talk to another property.
So let me just for a point of clarification, I know we already have comments and questions coming in about this. So then you don't do the one time, the fall cycle, right? You're looking at it 12 months throughout the year.
Right. Yeah. And I expect to start having the conversations about 2023 in probably around September. I say that it might not happen. Everybody says they're going to start their RFP early next year, and then it doesn't always happen. But I think that they'll by that time be in September we'll have some better data to kind of compare 2020 to 2021 and to be kind of reasonable with expectations, but
yeah, I think that kind of brings us to the next question, which is about this year is very weird in terms of going out and trying to negotiate hotel rates. It's different. So I'm not going to call it what's obvious, but what's been the difference for 2022 for you? And I'll shoot that back to Megan.
Yeah, I mean, 2022 has been a roller coaster. We saw beginning of the year when the first rounds of Delta variant were spiking and occupancy was falling and hotels were desperate to give away rooms. Can contrast that to now, we're seeing over the last several months, hotel rates have gone up month over month every year, every month for the past, I was on a webinar last week, what they say, 7 months. We've had both occupancy and rate increases every month, month over month. It puts us in a position, normally I'm a big fan of sending that RFP early. I like to be out to bid in June, early July at the latest, so that you can lock in rates before everybody else is out there. In this environment, though, I'm not sure that's the best choice. We are delaying. We're going to start sourcing in September, probably mid-September, to give the hotels a chance to understand what their business really looks like. I know what my business looks like. I have a pretty good idea of where I'm going to be for my transient business. But at the end of the day, hotels right now are on this big peak, and I think that's going to fall off. I think we're going to see this revenge travel that everybody's out getting their vacations in is going to dry up. I think that people are astounded by the cost of airfare, and they're not starting to not take as many flights. They're seeing cancellations and disruptions across the industry. I think the bottom is going to fall out of occupancy. And at that point, I think that hotels will be able to take a breath and understand where things are and be a little more reasonable in negotiations.
We may kind of reassess and maybe these rates might come down to something more reasonable.
Right. I had a vendor tell me recently that they're anticipating 20% rate increases on other corporate clients. And I said, well, if you're going to raise my rates 20%, I'm going to go stay somewhere else.
Right. That's a good answer.
It'll be a different discussion, I think, 60 days from now.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay. Valerie, what about you? 2022 has been pretty weird.
Yes, I think so. I think that another something that I've had to be aware of, that the hotels have gone through some really rough times. So some of the properties that may be in the need of a little upkeep, they haven't really been able to do that. So managing expectations from the travelers has been kind of, I don't want to say a challenge, but definitely
a challenge.
Yeah, and I think some of the things, some of the COVID related changes, not having housekeeping every day.
That's right.
Like limited room service, that kind of thing. People, I'm not getting complaints about it, but it definitely does impact the choices that you make and who you're going to call preferred. And so there's kind of a little bit more of a focus, new construction, newer properties, not exclusively, because it kind of is what it is. It's going to get better. I believe it's going to get better, but it's going to just take a little bit of time. But in terms of I guess my opinion about the traditional is RFP product. It's not just that; it's the value of preferred properties, and how if there's a preferred rate somewhere and I can see it's not being supported, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that hotel. It's just somebody wants Marriott rather than they're not married to their Hilton Honors account. They want, you know, their brand loyal, and there's no way to, you know, you can't satisfy everybody. So, you know, I don't want to make commitments that are not doable. So it's just in general, I know that for a large company, you're talking a lot of money in terms of cost avoidance. But it isn't necessarily that low hanging fruit the way it used to be for small to mid-sized businesses. True. And again, like we want travelers to be happy, and you know, if in your organization a person is actually out of policy for not staying at preferred property, that's a whole nother thing. I just don't really know how common that is anymore. I mean, I can remember when, you know, it was a big deal. Right. This is like you're flagged out of policy and you have to explain yourself. But not all small and mid-sized companies operate that way.
I suspect most don't operate that way anymore. But you're right, it was a big deal years ago.
How things have changed and what things are important and not anymore. Right? We had some questions coming in throughout the session, and I encourage everyone to use you can use the chat or the Q&A to pose questions to the panelists. And I can't read them all, but I can definitely go through these. And what we will do is after the session is done, if we run out of time, we'll go through the questions and then we'll post a video on YouTube with the answers. So no worries, we'll definitely get your question answered. We have one from Paul Knickerbocker, and he asked, based on what Greeley just stated, who is driving this requirement? Oh, geez, that was in the front of this. I think it has to do with the hotel RFP.
Right, that was back talking about the process, right? Like who's saying so we have to do it this way or that way?
People who in all caps, like who's saying that?
Right. So are the hotels driving the process, or the buyers driving the process, or what works?
I think the complexity of the system drives the process right now. And I don't like it, but I think it's a reality of the world we're in right now. If you've got a handful of hotels, you can do whatever you want with them. When you've got hundreds of hotels to deal with, if you don't have some sort of automation to connect all those dots, to put all the pieces together, then the mechanics of securing that rate, confirming the contract, loading it into your booking tool, flagging those hotels as preferred is overwhelming. If you've got an automated
break it up.
Yeah, we just lost Megan.
I think we might have lost your audio. We'll give you a minute. All right, we'll fill in on the audio.
Yeah, we'll jump to another question.
Yeah, so we had a good one that came in up. Lisa said, what are the thoughts around tools that reshop rates all year long? Could this type of activity replace hotel RFPs? That was something I wanted to talk about. So thank you, Lisa, for placing that question in there. Megan, you have audio or no?
Oh, can you hear me now? Am I back? Okay.
Yes.
So I don't know that they can replace the RFP, but I think that if you're doing anything with dynamic rates in your program, you are walking away from money on the table if you're not using a reshop tool. The reality is that hotel rates aren't fixed, right? A bar rate today is going to be different for tomorrow for the same days of stay. And if you're not monitoring that, then you're not capturing your incremental opportunity. Some of those tools have some really great functionality to help you secure rates, sort of an ad hoc RFP, an instant RFP, if you will. And I think those are great options too.
So then, because I think that's a good point. And Valerie, let me address this to you, because we're getting comments about, you know, the hotels honoring the rate, you know, so whether that's a dynamic rate, let's just stick with dynamic rate, I guess, right, versus a set rate. So I guess this is part of the reason why we see some of these other tools come in here, whether it's reshopping, rebooking, automated RFP, because it is so fluid right now, right? And I guess how are you securing or determining that, yes, this hotel gave me a, you know, chain wide, you know, discount or dynamic or whatever the case might be. So tell us how you look at this and how you monitor this to make sure you're getting what you thought.
Definitely have an absolute expectation that the employee is booking themselves. If they're doing what they're supposed to, they're doing it on the company's booking tool. And the rate that they book is the rate that they get. So that, I've never heard anyone say I showed up at a hotel and they didn't honor the rate. I mean, I do have, there certainly are times when there should be, the corporate rate that you negotiated should be what they can pick. And then you have to get to the bottom of why is this happening? This is not a blackout date or, you know, anything like that. I haven't really had a whole lot of problem with that. I mean,
Do you have more set rates than dynamic rates, or?
We right now would have more probably dynamic rates. And one of the things that, you know, when we kind of decided that we were going to abandon the traditional, you know, automated RFP model. One of the things that we decided we could do is, because of where our properties are, if there was, say, a Hampton Inn or something part of the Hilton chain, and we have a Hilton chain wide, then we would call that preferred. We're going to call that hotel preferred. It's not a negotiated rate. It's just the chain wide, and it's not going to be the same all the time, but we're still pushing the business to the vendor that we've got a chain wide with. It's not just like we're taking this discount, you know, whenever. I can't really speak to, Megan knows a lot more about the rate shopping, because I've never had any kind of a direct relationship with any of those suppliers. I've only used it, you know, with the TMC where there's some gain share involved with it. And it's a completely different, you know, ball game.
Well, it depends how you negotiate your contract.
Yeah.
So I'm using rate shopping. I'm using it in a reseller agreement from my TMC, but I have full control over configuration in that tool. So I tell them exactly what I want. I tell them when they're allowed to move my travelers, what room types are acceptable, all of those criteria. We set those up front, and we are seeing savings around 10%, even though my program is largely a mid and low tier hotel program. We have a lot of construction workers getting muddy on the job. They're not staying in 5-star hotels. They're staying in 2-star, 3-star if we're lucky places, and fluctuation in those rates isn't as great as you'll see if you're in a luxury hotel space. If you're running a program with a consultancy or someplace where you let your travelers stay in higher tier properties, you will absolutely see larger savings in a reshop, because those rates are highly variable if you're running dynamics. Now, if you're running a fixed price program, the question of are you getting your rate is super important. For anyone who hasn't realized this, you can control that in the booking tool. We used to do that in my last gig. We would set a rate cap. We negotiated a rate of 104 or whatever it was at this property. We would make that the rate cap for that hotel. So if they priced over their negotiated rate, it showed up in the tool as unavailable to my travelers. And it drove business very effectively.
Yeah, I bet. That way, we have a number of questions like popping in. Let's see, Carol made a comment. Carol Schrager made a comment. Many times the reshopping tool does not have a ROI once you pay for the tool and the fees to the TMC to make adjustments on their end for reporting.
I've not found that to be the case. But I negotiated that contract. So think about when you're setting up your resell, when you're setting up that shopping arrangement, whether you're getting it through your TMC or you're getting it direct from the vendor, talk very seriously about what those costs are, understand how that drives your cost model, and make sure you negotiate that so that it works for your business.
Yeah, it is very detailed, to Megan's point. There are lots of different tools out there that you can use for this. So great point. And it is all in how you set it up. Some people are fans of it. Some people are not.
Yeah, reshopping is getting a lot of attention.
I knew this was going to come up. Yeah, I knew.
I have a little bit of a problem just kind of straying from, you know, the belief. Today, when we have online booking tools and there's, you know, commercial tools, people now they're their own travel agent. Right. They have that's what they make the choices themselves. They're shopping, they're looking at fare rules for an airline ticket, they're looking at cancellation policies, and they're making the best choice for them. And I don't have a problem with the concept of reshopping, but I think that that has to be respected. And, you know, if somebody chose a rate that had a 24-hour cancellation, and then it got rebooked to something that was drop dead, you know, because you're already within cancellation, I would have a huge problem with that.
Sure.
You know,
but that's what you configure in the tool. I mean, we do that. We don't let them make the cancellation policy worse. We don't let them make the room type worse. If they booked a king, then they get a king. We don't allow the tool to change any of those things for our travelers, because I agree with you there, Valerie. The traveler knows what they need. They know if that trip is likely to change or not. They're going to need that short cancellation. But those are all configuration decisions. Set the tool up.
And this is what's interesting, right? We're talking about RFP.
We tried to talk about RFP.
Yeah.
But
nobody wants to talk about RFP.
What the issue is, or the challenge with our industry. We want to talk about RFP. We're talking about the RFP, but then we go and put all these mechanisms in place to protect. Because the RFP maybe didn't work, or the hotel's not honoring the rate, or, you know, we had questions about, you know, honoring rates and discounts, right? So there's that trust factor, because things then don't get loaded correctly or whatever. So then we have these other tools and other fees and layers that come in to try to fix.
Right. The complexity that was built for no reason. Right.
I think that's really an important point, really. At the end of the day, I can negotiate all I want, and I will hand on the Bible, tell my travelers I can buy it better than they can. You tell me you want to stay in that hotel, I can go write a deal at that hotel better than your average traveler every day of the week. But at the end of the day, if the hotel's not honoring it, if they're not loading it, if it's not available in the tool because something glitched out somewhere, all that effort is for nothing. So it's something that the industry needs to wrap their head around. And that doesn't mean add another 100 questions to the RFP template. It means figure out how to automate those connections so that when that hotel goes into whatever bid tool you're using and says, this is what I'm going to offer you, and I accept it, it gets into the GDS. It gets loaded in my tool. And the more we can automate that process and make it so we're not relying on people pushing buttons in the background, the better chance we have of those being available. Then you just have to fight the bid revenue management, close it out prematurely on you battle.
Great. It's a long checklist of things and milestones to get through this RFP. Okay. So I guess we'll stop talking about the reshop tools. We still have maybe one question left we could ask. Greeley, you want to pick it since I've been picking them all?
Let's just do one. I think, Megan, you mentioned about hotels saying what the percentage increase. We had somebody talking about, asking a question about, you know, the supply chain, cost of goods, inflation. Any sense yet of what will happen with rates going forward? You mentioned, you know, once the leisure travel drops off. So supply and demand over the next 12 months is going to be hard to predict, I believe.
Yep, I 100% agree with you. We got competing issues, right? So there's huge increase in cost. There's an increased cost of labor, there's increased cost of supply driven by supply chain, fuel to heat or air condition your hotel. All of that is rising in cost. At the same time, hotels have pulled back on services. And this is something not a lot of people are talking about. Used to be you'd go into a 5-star hotel and you had all those little perks and privileges, daily housekeeping, clean towels every day, little shampoos in your room, you name it. Those are all pulled back, and we understand and respect why they're pulled back, but there was no adjustment of the cost. So we have some costs rising, we have some costs falling. It's got to meet in the middle somewhere. If you're asking me, do I think rates are going up next year? Yeah, I absolutely think they are, but I don't think they're going to be 20%. At least I don't intend to sign contracts at 20% over this year.
Yeah, it'll be, and next year's rates I think will be very interesting because this year has been so strange. It's not a year to compare to any other year.
Well, you know, and that again, that comes to the value of a reshop tool, a rate assurance tool, because you can strike whatever deal you want, but if the hotel's empty and rev management opens up a whole block of rooms at a really low rate, you want to be able to move your people into those.
Yeah, I think very important that is the topic you talked about, which is the travelers, the employees don't know about all of this stuff. Maybe they haven't gone out to travel for work or travel at all since the pandemic started, and you're just sending them out. But the biggest thing for me is the experience at the hotel. So they get there, they can't get food, or maybe they can't get in their room. I don't know, but there's all kinds of strange things happening at the hotels. But the staffing is, staffing and service is a massive issue. I think across the board, for all suppliers, air, hotel, sorry guys, it just is. There's just not enough people. I'm not saying it in a way that
it's not a.
it's just where we are today. Everyone would love to have more people, and if we knew more agents, we'd send them your way. We help you staff those places. But that's the biggest thing for me, is that the people who are going out right now, that they're getting the message that it's different now. When you're traveling for work, this is what you are to expect, not what it was a couple years ago. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Megan, because that was a big one for me. Yeah. Okay, you guys, we are at time, believe it or not. We did have a couple questions and some things come in the chat. We promise we will get back to you, and we'll post something with all the answers on that. And any last words from the panel, or we're just all going to say goodbye? Any questions, comments, suggestions? And yes, Iggy, we will share the recording. I'll put it out on LinkedIn, and it's stored on YouTube. So actually, as soon as we hang up, we'll start rendering and you can watch it. Okay, so that answers that. And thank everybody. Thank you to Valerie and Megan, our panelists.
Thank you.
And thank you, Greeley, my guest co-host, for helping.
Thank you. Great discussion. Clearly not over. It's not done.
Yeah, and looking forward to next
More to come.
July, and we'll have one every month. So be on the lookout for our invitations. And we'll see you at the next Face Off. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.